Sir, it's visible, sir.
Hello guys. Hello and very warm welcome to today's session. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, yes.
Okay. So should we begin?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay. So today we are going to talk about post-structuralism, as Shahrukh said already mentioned. Now, whenever we are talking about post-structuralism, the first thing we need to understand is what is the basic difference of structuralism and post-structuralism. As you know, in a way, post-structuralism is a continuation of structuralism only, and it's also very different from structuralism. Now, let's dig a little deeper and find out how it's different. As we all know, structuralism is, developed a model of reading text and all the cultural artifacts in a certain way. They are looking into the narrative technique. They are unpacking the elements that are written over the page. They are doing a close reading, and they are saying if we decode the signifier and signify it in a certain way, we can derive the final meaning. And that's what is problematic for the post-structuralists. The post-structuralists are saying we can't find the final meaning altogether because language itself is contradictory, is slippery, is unfinalizable, and as in Derrida's language, it impregnated with difference and difference at the same time. Now, please look at the slide now. As post-structuralism is a term for philosophical and literary forms of theory that both build upon and reject ideas established by structuralism. Now, what is the idea that is rejected by post-structuralism? The idea is that we can't find a final meaning. We have multiple meanings, we have multiple voices, but we don't have a center, we don't have a eureka moment. That's what post-structuralism are talking about. Now, the origins of post-structuralism was not in literature. It was not a literary movement, it was a philosophical movement. Now, who is the forefather of that? Derrida introduced the discipline or the theory altogether, but Derrida was influenced by a German philosopher. His name is Martin Heidegger. And he wrote this particular book, Being and Time, where he is questioning, he is doing this scrutiny of the basic ontological aspects of human life. What are the aspects? Time, history, human society, and where he is talking about this, that we should not and we cannot take everything at the face value of it. So this art of questioning begins there, and Derrida is taking that. Post-structuralism is a post-World War II theory where we are questioning the authority. It's very anti-foundational in nature. We have to understand that first. Okay? Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, why all of a sudden people felt the need of post-structuralism? We have structuralism, we have new criticism, we are good to go. Then all of a sudden, why people felt? Now, it was a post-World War theory, and literary theories or literary ages, the first thing we need to understand that these are not watertight compartments. As I'm already mentioning, it's a post-World War II theory. That doesn't mean that in 1946, 1st January, post-structuralism begins. These things don't work like that. These are fluid, okay? We can find a 18th century text very postmodern, like a famous text by Tristram Shandy, the text Tristram Shandy by Lawrence Sterne. It's a postmodern text. We study it as a postmodern text, but it belonged to Augustan period, right? So these are not watertight compartments. Now, as I said, it's a post-World War II theory. So there are massive events like Holocaust have taken place, Hiroshima, Nagasaki have taken place, 6 million Jews were killed. Now that was the official record. There are more people than that. Now, people are saying, what is happening? We don't have a peaceful society. It disrupted their lives like anything. They are unable to find a core meaning. And post-structuralism is talking about the same thing, that we don't have a core meaning. We have multiple versions of truth. We have multiple voices. So that's where post-structuralism is beginning. And there is also Vietnam War had taken place. There's also, in 1968, there's a very renowned revolution that had taken place in Paris. That kind of initiated this art of questioning in a very new way. So these are all the background settings of post-structuralism, right? Now, look at the third point. It's grand narratives but versus pity receipt. Can anybody tell me what is the meaning of pity receipt? Anybody? Okay. Pity receipt means small narratives, right? Grand narratives are meta narratives. Now, as I talked about Holocaust, so if we study Holocaust from Hitler's perspective, what is Holocaust? They will say that it's our fight for our blue blood, our nation. So that's a grand narrative where it's all hunky-dory, it's all beautiful, they are doing it for their own country. That's a grand narrative. Now, in the Holocaust only, there are 6 million people were killed. They also have narratives, but the narratives of those 6 million Jews couldn't make it to the grand narrative. Why? Because they are marginal characters. So when we are talking about the marginal characters, the oppressed class, the people who didn't get any visibility altogether, their narratives are pretty decent. Now, after post-World War or after Paris Revolution, after the introduction of post-colonial theory also, the academia is filled with, or the academia is very concerned with the marginal narratives, and it's a good thing, right? So in post-structuralism, we are, because there is no center, the margin becomes the center sometimes, the so-called center becomes the center. So the pity receipt getting the visibility. Now, I want to give you an example of our own lives. In COVID-19, when the second wave happened, but the official record was saying that there are nobody who faced the lack of oxygen cylinders. But we all know the reality was different. People died like anything. Now, after 60 years, when a kid or when an adult will read the reports of COVID-19 or they will do a survey, they will find the official record. So what is that? That's a grand narrative. But we live that reality. We know what has happened. So our narratives are pity receipt. Okay? Now, it's a reaction again, the rigid nature of structuralism, as I already said. They are asking the authority, it's anti-foundational, it's anti-traditional. They are continuously questioning that what is the basic truth, because there is no truth. There are multiple truths, there are traces of truth everywhere, but there is no definite truth, so to say. Now, this one is very important. Please be a little mindful of this. It's how as I said, it's not watertight compartments, but there is, in quotes, a beginning for everything altogether. Now, what is, when post-structuralism is actually beginning? In 1966, Derrida went to John Hopkins University to publish a paper. The name of the paper is Structure, Sign and Play in the Discourse of Human Science. Now, ironically, it was a paper on structuralism, but it turned out to be a paper on the loopholes of structuralism, and it kind of destabilized the basic premises of structuralism, and the discipline of post-structuralism is being born. Now, what Derrida is doing in this paper, he is challenging the concept of logocentrism. To understand logocentrism, we first understand phonocentrism. So what is phonocentrism? We always privilege speech over writing. Now, why? We privilege speech over writing because we think in speech we have a speaker, we have a core essence, we have a distinct authority. So that's why we think that speech is a more reliable source for things for writing, because writing is changeable, writing is editable, right? So Derrida termed this privileging of speech over writing phonocentrism. Now, as I said, the speaker is the essence. Now, Derrida's idea of this essence is logos. Logos or core or essence. This is kind of a metaphysical entity or a godly thing. Now, Derrida is saying that we think that we have a center, we have a logos in speech, and we are doing this, we are signifying this transcendental signified, which is a godlike figure. And we are finding the absolute truth. Now, that is problematic because we don't have absolute truth. So, we can't have a core or can't have a essence altogether. We have multiple centers, we have multiple cores, so to say. So, in this seminar, Derrida was talking about this, and that's where the discipline of post-structuralism is being born. Okay? Now, the basic origins, as I said, Martin Heidegger, he wrote this book, Being and Time, and where he gave us this concept of destruction. Destruction is a German concept, and he's also talking about Abu. Now, what is Abu? Abu is unbuilding. It's in deconstruction. What are we doing? We are deconstructing things, we are breaking things into little pieces, and we are experimenting. Unbuilding is also that. We are also doing decanonization. In our syllabus, we have certain text. Earlier, it used to like white, Eurocentric male text. Now things are changing. Now we are unbuilding the process of canonization, and we are doing decanonization. Foucault was also one of the major influences of Derrida. We'll talk about Foucault more in today's class only. And there is Friedrich Nietzsche. Now, how is Nietzsche?
Number of keys.
Could you switch off your mic, please? And Nietzsche was another influence of Derrida. Nietzsche had this very famous quote, "There are no facts, only interpretations." That particular quote is influencing deconstruction as a movement. Now, we have no facts, only interpretations. And interpretation is a very personal experience. My interpretation can be different from yours. A's interpretation can be different from B's. B's different interpretation can be different from C's. And everybody considered to be right, right? Now, we can't really say your interpretation is right, mine is wrong. So, that's the basic, trait of post-structuralism. It's celebrating the heterarchy, not the hierarchy. It's rejecting the binary opposition of structuralism. Now, whenever we are having a binary opposition, in binary we have two terms. Suppose A and B, but A and B are not different entities in binary. B is equal to A minus. B is something, which lacks something the A already has. One term represents presence, and the second term represents a corruption or distortion or the lack of the presence. Now, when we are having a binary, it's not a peaceful coexistence of two terms. It's creating a violent hierarchy, like men and women. Women are considered to be something, it's lacking something the man already has. So, deconstruction is saying it's not necessary and it's wrong. You should celebrate the hierarchy among people or among literature, among everything. Now, who are the major proponents of post-structuralism? Jacques Derrida, he was the founding father, so to say, and we are having Roland Barthes, the Yale critics. Who are the Yale critics? Yale critics are the American deconstructionists. Harold Bloom was one of them, J. Hills Miller, Paul Deman, Zizek. He's also very important. Now we'll take one by one. First, we'll start with Derrida. He was an Algerian-born French philosopher. Why he's French and why he was Algerian-born? Because Algeria was a French colony then. Now, as I said, he published this paper, Structure, Sign and Play in the Discourse of Human Sciences, and that kind of introduced the discipline of post-structuralism. What are his major works? of Grammatology was one of them. And it's seminal, very seminal. And who translated Of Grammatology into English? Very good. Now, also writing and difference, we are having Archive Fever, Spectres of Marx, Margins of Philosophy, Speech and Phenomena, Gift of Breath, of Hospitality. Now, you don't need to mug it up, okay? Just go over the slide a few times and take a mental picture. It will automatically get imprinted in your brain and you're good to go. Because this question, they don't ask very detailed questions. They will ask these questions as match the following. This Spectres of Marx was asked in West Bengal SET in 2021. So just read the text, name of the text. It's enough. And we are also having Roland Barthes. Now, Roland Barthes is very important as a figure. Why? Because he is, stands like a connecting bridge. He was also a structuralist initially. Then he found out the loopholes of structuralism, and he started practicing post-structuralism. He's acting like a connecting bridge where his works allows us to move from the structuralist insights provided by people like Saussure or Levi-Strauss to post-structuralism, which both dismantles and as well as builds upon the basic premises of structuralism. Now, what are his major works? A Lover's Discourse. I have this book. There are little segments, very philosophical. You can read this. Mythologies was one of them. Camera Lucida, SZ. The Pleasure of the Text, Writing Degree Zero, Roland Barthes. This, look at number 7. It's Roland Barthes by Roland Barthes. This question can come. Image, Music, Text, Elements of Semiology, The Death of the Author. I'm sorry I put it in the 10th number. I should have put it in the first position because it's very important. Now, Death of the Author, it was first published in an American journal named the Aspen, ASPEN. Okay. Now, what is Barthes talking about in The Death of the Author? He's saying that we have a perceived notion about what is an author. Right? When you talk about an author, we usually think of a real thing, of an individual who stands prior to a particular text and who kind of pouring his own emotions, his own sensibilities, and his own ideas into the text. So when we are reading the text, we should be very mindful of the author. What is he or she thinking? What is his or her take? Now, when we are giving so much importance to the author, we are evoking him as the ultimate arbiter of the text. Now, he's regarded as the generator of he's generating the work and he's controlling the work. Right? Now, according to Barthes, that author is not a reality. There's nothing called the author. He created the work. Now we should think the text as a different entity. According to Barthes, the author is not a reality. Rather, it's a bourgeois fiction. Now, Barthes considers meaning to be the product of the internal relationship of difference and signifier that have with each other. Because he's already saying that meaning cannot be poured into a text. The reader should derive its meaning by decoding the elements that are there in the text. Now, Barthes, by pointing out this, declares that the death of the author figure. Now, death of the author, this title is very intriguing. People are, criticizing him that how can you say that the author is dead? So Barthes is defending here. He is saying that when I'm talking about the death of the author figure, it actually not really means that the actual death, but actually the recognition of the fact that author is a fiction, which is conceived or which is mistaken as a reality. Now the work becomes a text when the reader refuses the authority, then only the work can become a text. Okay. Now we'll do Foucault a little later. First we'll do some concepts related to post-structuralism. Now first we will do aporia. What what is aporia? Aporia is undecidability. Okay, now imagine you have gone to a wedding, big fancy wedding. There are different cuisines. There are Lebanese food, there are Mexican food, there are South Indian food, there is North Indian food, and you are kind of confused. Okay, so undecidability is not really confusion, but for your understanding, you can take that. You can have that benefit of doubt. Now, what is aporia? Aporia is undecidability when you cannot find a single meaning, you cannot find a single core. But is it a dead zone? Is it a meaninglessness to an extent that we don't have a meaning? It's futile, it's pointless? No. Aporia is not that. Aporia is not exactly a dead zone of meaninglessness. On the contrary, it leads us to a deeper appreciation of the complex relationship that both underlines and undermines the meaning-making process. It's kind of process. What are you doing? We are continuously changing the meaning or continuously doing different things, different versions of the meaning. Now, aporia is the final phase of deconstruction. In the final phase of deconstruction, a fruitful aporia is happening. Now, what is a fruitful aporia? A fruitful aporia is that which helps us to go beyond the conventionality of meaning making. Structuralism is dealing with the conventional way. It is doing a close reading, that's a good thing, but it's only looking into the text from a single perspective. It's not celebrating the difference that is there. Now, aporia is questioning, or it's going beyond the conventionality of meaning-making process and see through their claims of eternity. Now, whenever you are talking about that there's a single meaning, you are saying it's universal, it's eternal. Now, aporia is questioning that, but it's not necessarily a reduction of meaning into nonsense. The deconstructive aporia is highly potent, political tool, which is used to, we can use it as an overturning tool into the conceptual orders, or we can use it to question the conceptual regimes like patriarchy or racism. In patriarchy, what is happening? In patriarchy, we are considering a man better than a woman. Now, aporia is undecidability. We can question these conceptual regimes like patriarchy or racism using aporia, right? We can dismantle the order. Now, I'll ask you a question. Bakhtin also gave us a concept to dismantle the prevalent order in the society. What is that? Is it polyphony? Is it carnivalesque? It is heteroglossia? What is that? You should note this, guys. It's very easy. It's carnivalesque. Now, what is the basic difference between text and a work? A work is if you are holding a book in your hand, okay, now, that is a work, that is not a text. But when you are reading that book, you are perceiving the meaning, that is a text. A work is basically a physical object that have a shelf life. If you are putting your novel, say Wuthering Heights, in your shelf, that's a work. But you are reading that book, you were getting very illuminated by Cathy and Heathcliff's love story. That is a text. A text, a text is very organic in nature, and the work is very mechanical. A text is kind of experienced only as an activity of production. When you are producing a meaning, when you're deriving a meaning from the layers of the text, of the work, then it transitioning as to a text. Now, text becomes the hero, the only hero. Who said this, that there is no outside text?
Roland Barthes.
Sorry?
Roland Barthes.
No, sweetheart, it's Derrida.
Ferdinand de Saussure.
It's Derrida.
Sorry, I just always confuse.
Okay, no worries. There is no outside text. It's Derrida told this. Now, Derrida is saying that we have everything as the form of text. In postmodern world, we can consider, now we have different disciplines also, film studies, and we have social sciences. We are now social sciences. What do? We do surveys, we do social studies. Now we study people, right? So people can be considered as text. So Derrida is saying we have everything, or everything is there in the version of text. There is no outside text. Text is the real hero, but in the text there is no core. We have multiple meanings, so the chain of meaning making is kind of keeps on going. That is what is saying. Now, difference and deference, it's very important. Difference and deference, it's kind of fused into this word in deference. What is deference? Derrida describes this term deference by fusing together the sense of two French words. One meaning is to differ. It's different from each other. Now, another is to defer. What is defer? Defer is postponement. If I'm referring a cat, first I'm referring it as an animal. I'm right. Then I'm referring it as a, say, furry animal. Again, I'm right. But what did I do? I added a little detail, right? I deferred a little bit. I elongated a little bit. So in post-structuralism, we're continuously doing that. The chain of meaning making is always there. Because we don't have a final signified. We don't have signified. One signifier is signifying another signifier only. So that is all he's talking about. Now, I talked about text and work. What is a readerly text and what is a writerly text? This concept is given by Barthes. It's very net favorite. I don't know why. They ask this question how many times, I don't know. They keeps on asking this, so please be very mindful of it. A readerly text is one that left the reader with nothing. You don't need to do anything. You just read and you perceive the meaning. It's explained, explicated, it described, very easily. You act as a passive recipient of the meaning. Now, what is a writerly text? A writerly text, on the other hand, is where the reader has to play a very active role. It's the meaning. You need to get the clues and you need to decode the meaning all by yourself. So that is a writerly text. Now we will do Foucault first. Now, we can't really compartmentalize Foucault. He is everywhere. He is in post-structuralism, he is in postmodernism, he is in feminism, he is in new historicism. So, and he himself is a school, but we have to study him. So he is a little bit of a post-structuralist, so there's no harm studying him. Now, his major, when in 1953, he was a student then, and he read this book of Friedrich Nietzsche. The name of the book is Untimely Meditations, and he is getting very much influenced by it. How in this book, Nietzsche is talking about on the uses and abuses of history for life. Now that Foucault finding it's very intriguing that history is not innocent. History is always written from the perspective of the people in power. And the books that are kind of countering or kind of holding a finger towards the people in power, they are getting banned or they are not getting printed. It's always there. That's what new historicism is talking about. Now, what are his major works? Archaeology of Knowledge 1, Madness and Civilization. It's getting published in 1961. it's talking about how we are ostracize people. Now, he's talking about this, that in Renaissance there are tolerance. People are celebrating the difference, that A's opinion can be different from B's. People are celebrating that, but people gave space to other people. People respected other people's thought. Now, what is happening in the 17th century? People tried to create this separate boundary for people, and it's like a checklist. When you are not making to the checklist, you are a madman. That's it. Foucault is always talking about, right? So the mad who are not fulfilling the basic criteria that are introduced by the state or the power, whatever, they were sent to asylum, so they are considered to be criminals, or they're not humans. They're not considered as humans only. Now the third book is The Birth of the Clinic. It's talking about a medical case. Now, human entity is our hands, our legs, our eyes, all of the part of the human entity. Now, Foucault is saying, in today's world, when we have a problem, say in my nose or in my ear, we go to a ENT surgeon. We have some heart problems, we go to the cardiologist. Now, Foucault is saying it's a medical case, and when we are going to a cardiologist or say an ENT surgeon, we are kind of segregating that body part from our body. We are considering the body part as a different object, and that's kind of dehumanizing, because we are differentiating it from the human self or the human entity. It's the body part becomes the whole entity then, and it's a kind of an object, and Foucault finds it very problematic, and he says that this is the politics of the medical gaze. Okay. Now, Order of Things is another book. They can give you, like, say, set them in order. They can give you this question, so be mindful of the years, publication years. Now, Discipline and Punish is, the subtitle of the book is The Birth of Prison. We'll talk about it more. Now, History of Sexuality is it's coming in 3 volumes. The volumes are The Will to Knowledge, The Use of Pleasure, The Care of the Self. Now, they can also give you this question. They have given this question that how many parts we are having in History of Sexuality. Now, they can give you 3 parts, and they can give you another book, and you have to pick the odd one out. So be mindful of these things. Now, panopticon is a very important concept which Foucault is introducing, or Foucault is using, not introducing, in Discipline and Punish. Now, look at the picture. It's a prison house, okay? And we're having this tower in the middle where a person can, using his torch or light, whatever, and he can look into any shell he wants. Now, we can say it's a prison house, so they are criminals, so it's okay to invade their privacy, or it's okay to look into their lives. But is it? It's not. Foucault is saying that earlier what used to happen, that people who are doing something wrong, or people who are criminals, so to say, they are getting their punishment in the public light. But in modern punishment system, what is happening? In modern punishment system, the problem is that it looks to be very kind, but it's equally barbaric. How? Now, everything is happening in the closed door, so we really don't have any idea that what is really happening. You can abuse a criminal in the closed doors, and nobody will know. And the concept of prison is also the reality, and the basic conceptual framework is very different. When you are putting a person in the prison, you are saying that we are trying to purify the soul of this criminal, but it's actually very barbaric, because you are not focusing on the purification of the soul, you are torturing that person, because nobody has the authority to look into what is really happening over there. So panopticon is a disciplinary concept that is brought to life in the form of a central observation tower placed within a circle of prison cells. It's very invading, it's very inhuman, and it's basically surveillance. We all also under surveillance all the time. We have our phone numbers registered in our Aadhaar card, and our Aadhaar cards are registered into our bank accounts. So whenever we are going, the government has the power to track you down. So what is that? That is surveillance. We don't think about these things this way. That's why we don't, get this idea. So Foucault using panopticon as a metaphor for surveillance, and it has become a part of our lived reality. As I said, we all are under surveillance all the time. It's basically CCTV cameras also. You go to the mall, you go to the hospital, everywhere there is CCTV. Now also in schools, there are CCTV cameras. But we don't give it a thought. That's why we don't understand this. Foucault is all about our everyday existence. If you read Foucault in greater detail, you will understand that. And Foucault is using this concept of panopticon, but who designed the panopticon for the first time? He's a utilitarian critic. Jeremy Denta, please note this down. This can come in the exam. Now we will do three. I'll ask. I said I told you the answers in this class only, so I want the answers from you now. Who has written this book, Being and Time, which is influencing Derrida? It's
Heidegger.
Very good. Now the second question. Anybody? It's introducing the theory of poststructuralism. Derrida is going to publish a paper at certain university. Sorry, can you tell? Guys, I told this in this class only. Are you guys not listening? Sorry?
Hopkins University.
Okay, great. And who said there are no facts, only interpretations? This is also influencing. Foucault and as well as Derrida. And this man has also said.
Roland Barthes.
No.
Derrida.
No. He's also writing untimely. Sorry?
Ma'am, it's Frederick. I think Frederick.
Frederick Nietzsche. Good. Very good. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you for joining in. Now, Sharda, you can take over.